Okay, all you music theory fans, good job at making it through your second test. We only have a couple more weeks left in the trimester, so let's really kick it into gear and do a good job on listening and learning. This week we're going to learn about minor scales, triads, progressions, and modes. As I told you, whenever I teach, I try to teach based upon stuff that you already know. You know part of the things that are going to be a basis for these things that we'll learn this week, but we're going to build on those things, and we're going to change a few things and teach you how changing them actually gives us more tools to compose with. All right? All right, first question for you. How many major scales with unique key signatures are there? You've learned them in the circle of fifths. I'll give you a couple of seconds to answer that. Here we go. Look around the circle of fifths. We've got 12 unique key signatures right around the circle, plus 3 more enharmonic keys. So we have learned 15 major scales with unique key signatures. Now, here's the part that we're going to build with. For every major scale, there is a relative minor scale. The relative minor scale, check this out, is listed right below the major scale. Here, 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 and so on. Now you notice that I only have one key signature there for each one of those things. The relative minor key signature is exactly the same as its relative major. So C major and A minor have the exact same key signature. G major and E minor have the exact same key signature, and so on and so on. Okay? So, looking at all of these little relatives here, do you see anything that's in common on each one of these? Take a couple of seconds and see if you can answer that question. I'll answer it for you. The relative minor key is always a minor third down from the major key it is related to. So if you come back here, look at this. C major is exactly a minor third above A minor. I went down a minor third to get to the relative minor. You can look at any of the other ones of these. Let's go to A flat major. If you go back a minor third, first of all, go back in quantity, A, G, F. That's a third. Now we got to go quality. So A flat, if you go 3 half steps down, you will end up at F. So A flat and F are relatives. This is the major key. This is the minor key. Same key signature. Cool? All right. So, I just blanked that out. Now I want you to tell me what the relative minor of C major is. Now I want the relative minor of D major. Now I want the relative minor of A flat major. And finally, D flat major. So how did you guys do? Can you go back a minor third? That's one of the questions that I asked you on test number 2. I gave you the top note of an interval, and I asked you to go down to make the interval. It makes it a little bit tougher because you can't rely on the tonic being on the bottom and telling your quality of the interval from whatever the key signature is. So that's why I had you do that. Going down an interval. You got to know how many half steps, all right? So, check this out. Let's look at this one more time. These minor scales, this particular one is called the natural minor scales. I told you the key signatures for the natural minor scales are exactly the same as their relative major. So, no sharps, no flats. That would be the key signature for C major or A minor. E flat major, remember going to the next to the last flat right there. That key signature is exactly the same as its relative minor, C minor. Okay? And finally, this one is the major key of F sharp. If you go down a minor third, you'll be at D sharp. Exact same key signature. Now, what I've discussed with you, unfortunately, if you think that's the only minor scale, it's not. That is the easiest one because just generally speaking, it is the one that shares exactly what you've already learned in the major scales. It just shifts down a little bit before it gets started. Okay, so with that said, let's explain that a little bit. The first one is the natural minor, which we've already discussed. The second one will be called the harmonic minor, and the third is the melodic minor scale. Let's dig into this one just a little bit more to get a couple of its characteristics. One, it follows the key signature of its relative major key. We already explained that, so you guys already know that. Two, it uses only the tones from the relative major scale. It just starts a minor third lower. Consider the key of C major. No sharps, no flats. Picture your keyboard. If you shift the tonic down, the minor third, you will start on an A, right? Just play all white keys. Check it out. That's what a minor scale sounds like. You don't have to think about anything. You just have to play whatever sharps or flats were in the major scale. All right? You just start a little bit lower. So you just shifted yourself down. And when you talk about interval patterns, remember the cheer that we learned for major scales? Why don't we take a second to actually put down that cheer? What was it in terms of whole and half steps? All right. Well, the minor scale has another cheer. Instead of our whole, half, whole, half, the natural minor scale says whole, half, whole, half, whole. Okay? So you think you can learn both of those cheers? That would be good. All right. Now, diatonic intervals. You guys had this on a quiz for the major scales. For the major scales, remember, if you did unison, stayed just on the tonic, that's a perfect first. If you go from the first to the second, we had a major second, then a major third, perfect fourth, perfect fifth, major sixth, major seventh, and a perfect eighth. For the minor scales, we've still got the perfect first and the major second. See right here? But then we replace the third with a minor third. So we lower it by a half step. Here's our perfect first, major second. Here's our minor third. Then we have the perfect fourth and perfect fifth, the same as in the major scale. But then look at, we lower the sixth and the seventh by a half step, making them a minor sixth and a minor seventh. And then, just as in the major scale, we have the perfect eighth. Cool? So again, here is a natural minor scale. This one actually starts on C. Cool? All right. When you come back on Tuesday, we'll be doing some of the examples on the board. I can't really assign that to you right now in this ed puzzle, but we will get to that, and we will have some worksheets on that. The second type of minor scale is called the harmonic minor scale, and this one actually is the one that we use as composers most of the time. It's got a little bit more of a unique little edge to it, and it has a unique little step in it as well. For the major and relative minor scales, we only had steps of whole and half. Well, in this harmonic minor scale, we actually do a step and a half on the 7th scale degree. So if I started a harmonic minor scale on an A, here's what the harmonic minor scale would sound like. The unique part of that was between scale tones 6 and 7, we actually skipped a step and a half. All right? So now our diatonic intervals go from the perfect first to the major second. Again, the exact same as the major scale and the natural minor scale. Then we do the minor third, which was the same as in the natural minor scale. The perfect fourth and perfect fifth, same as the major scale and the relative minor scale. The minor sixth, which is the same as the natural minor. But now we do a major seventh and perfect eighth. All right? So, again, here is where our A minor, A harmonic minor, minor scale sounds. Nice little Middle Eastern sound. Very juicy to make nice transitions into and out of. All right, and finally, we have the melodic minor scales. It's the same as the natural minor. The natural minor was the first thing that we learned today. All right, same as the natural minor on the bottom 5 tones. That tonic, supertonic, mediant, subdominant, and dominant. Those are all the same as in a natural minor scale. But to confuse us a little bit more, in the 6th, 7th scale degrees, this particular scale is different going up and going down. When we are ascending, that 6th and 7th scale degree sounds like a major scale. And when we're coming down, those things are flattened just like a natural minor scale. Very confusing, isn't it? So we have different interval patterns going up and down. Let me play the melodic minor scale for you, starting on A. When we go up, that's the first 5 notes. They sound like a regular minor scale, but the last 3 notes sound like this. That makes it sound more like a major scale. And then when you come down, we flat those 6 and 7. Okay, let me play the whole thing without talking through it. So going up, we make major 6ths and 7ths, and going down, we make minor 6ths and 7th. All right? So, as far as whole steps and half steps, do you think that you could answer that for me and tell me what the whole steps and half steps are for a melodic minor scale going up and then coming back down? And now I'd like you to name the diatonic intervals. Remember the perfect first, major second, blah, blah, blah. You got to give me all of those diatonic intervals. But in this particular scale, you're going to have to tell me what they are going up and what they are coming down because they change. All right? Moving on. Now let's see how these guys are notated. Let's look at these and figure out which one is which. Just looking at these, we have 1, 2, 3 examples. I will tell you right now, they are examples of the natural minor, the harmonic minor, and the melodic minor. So take a second. This top one is number 1, number 2, and number 3. Which one is the natural minor? Which one is the harmonic minor and which one is the melodic minor? All right, coming back to you. This first one, as we're going up, we see that we have the A, B, C, D, and E. That's the A minor scale up to the relative. That is the A minor scale that has no sharps, no flats. But look at here, we have a raised 6th and 7th. And then, more importantly, it changes coming down. Coming back down, we have no sharps, no flats, so it goes back to the natural minor key signature of A minor. This one would be a melodic minor scale. Right here, no sharps, no flats. Starts on A, so this is an A minor, a natural minor scale, this one. Here, you see only the 7th scale degree is raised. Between here and here, that's a step and a half there. From F to G sharp, that's a step and a half. That's a telltale of our harmonic minor scale. So, after all the distinction in how to build the different minor scales, what should we do to remember which is which? Yep, those unique little characteristics. For me, I like to just think about what is unique about each one. The easiest way for me, I think, is to, for melodic, look to see if it's different going up and going down. That's most likely going to be a melodic minor. In the harmonic minor, look for that step and a half between steps 6 and 7 of the scale. In the natural minor, it will follow the key signature of its relative major exactly. Okay? So those are our telltales that we'll look for when we identify a minor scale and which type it is. Now, getting into minor triads. Just like a major triad can be built on the 1st, 3rd, and 5th scale degrees of a major scale, we can build minor triads on the 1st, 3rd, and 5th of a minor scale. So, A minor triad sounds like this. That is the 1, 3, and 5 of the A minor scale. I'll play the relative minor. Here's the triad on the 1st, 3rd, and 5th. C minor triad, you'll have your root on the C. Here's the C natural minor scale. 1, 3, and 5. Very unique little sound, okay? Moving on. Let's notate it and look a little bit more carefully at it. The minor triad has a minor 3rd on the bottom and a major 3rd on the top, the opposite of a major triad. So when I say the opposite, take a second to tell me what kind of intervals are in a major triad. What's on the bottom, what's on the top? Very good. All right, so here's a question. What triads are in the major scale were major triads? Which one were minor triads? What about in the minor scale? Let's think about that. I just threw that question at you. You all are probably saying, Mrs. Hinkley, I don't understand what you were talking about. Remember when we talked about major scales and we put diatonic triads on each one of the scale tones? We had the 1 chord, which sounded like this, and that was a major triad. So we put a capital Roman numeral 1. On the 2, that was minor. If you started on D, no sharps, no flats, that was a minor triad. The 3rd was minor as well. 4th was major. 5th was major. 6th was minor. 7th was diminished. And the 8th was back to the tonic or major. Okay? So we have to do that for our minors. Let's take a peek at that. The major scale has the major triads on 1, 4, and 5. The major scale minor triads were on 2, 3, and 6. That was review. That's what I just played for you. In the minor scale, the major triads are different for each of the minor scales. They're not the same for the natural, harmonic, and melodic minor scales because we're shifting those notes around a little bit. All right, we're going to come back to that. Here's another question for you. What happened to the 7 in the diatonic triad? You guys I gave you the answer to that just now. What is the 7th in a major scale? That is right, diminished. It is a diminished triad. Okay, keep that in mind. You'll need that. Now, we have a major and minor triad so far. Here's major. That has a major third on the bottom and a minor third on the top. And here is a minor triad. Minor third on the bottom, major third on the top. Okay. Now, when we move on, let's try stacking 2 minor thirds or 2 major thirds. If we have this particular chord, the first one, it sounds like this. A major third on the bottom and a major third on the top. That's a unique sound. I don't think we've heard that before. We're going to come back to that. Now, when we stack 2 minor thirds on top of each other, that's the second chord, it sounds like this. We have heard that. That is the diminished triad. This is the diminished triad. This one is kind of new to us. We're going to call this an augmented triad. It's kind of behind that little JPEG right there. But this is called an augmented triad, and he contains 2 major thirds on top of each other. That's a great quiz question. Remember that. This one is called a diminished triad, and you already learned that. It has 2 minor thirds on top of each other. I played them for you already, so I can skip this slide. Now, here are our major diatonic triads. Check this out. The 1 is major, 2 was minor, 3 was minor, 4 was major, 5 was major, 6 was minor, 7 was diminished, wasn't it? And we drew that with a little circle. That's how you denote a diminished triad. We have to have that little suffix there so that we know it is 2 minor thirds on top of each other. Now, our major diatonic triads are truly complete when we put that in there. In the major scale, we have major triads, minor triads, and that 1 diminished triad. So what about augmented triads? Why the heck are we learning that? We didn't have them in the major scale, but guess what? We're going to have them when we get to one of the minor scales. Cool? Maybe 2 of the minor scales. So we are going to notate the augmented triads with a plus after them. The diminished ones had a little 0 or circle after them. The augmented triads have a plus after them. That signifies 2 major thirds on top of each other. So the summary of our triad shorthand is this. We've got our C major chord here. You just draw it as a C. If you lower the third, you have a major third or minor third on the bottom and a major third on the top. That is C minor. That's a minor triad. If you have 2 minor thirds on top of each other, we call that a diminished triad, shorthand with a little circle. If you have 2 major thirds on top of each other, we call that an augmented triad. That had that unique little sound. Very unique little sound. Oops. All right, so let's look at the triads built on the natural and harmonic minor scales. By the way, here's a question for you. Which one is which? This is number 1. This is number 2. What's this and what's this? You were right if you said this was the natural minor, this is the harmonic minor, okay? You're in A minor. Remember I told you in A minor, the relative minor of C major, no sharps, no flats, right? You notice that this, which happens to be a G sharp and the 7th tone of the A minor scale is raised a half step. That tells you that it is a harmonic minor set of diatonic triads. All right? You want to listen to them? Here are the diatonic triads for A minor, this first line. And these are the diatonic triads for A harmonic minor. Interesting, very interesting. All right, so for natural minor, that 1 is minor. The 2 is diminished. 2 minor thirds on top of each other. The 3 is major. The 4 is minor. The 5 is minor. So in a major scale, remember those 2 were major. The 6 is major. The 7 is major. And the 1 is minor. All right? So we're just building triads on each one of those scale degrees. A minor is the easiest, no sharps, no flats. Now when you come down here to the harmonic minor, and you have to add that G sharp in, this is what happens. We have this going on the 3rd scale degree, that augmented. So this is what they sound like. Here's 1, here's 2, diminished, just like the natural minor, but the 3 is augmented because of that 7th degree. 4 is minor. 5 happens to be major in this one because of the 7th in there. 6 is also major, just like in the natural minor. And then we have a diminished 7 diatonic chord for the 7th scale degree. And back to 1, which is minor. Okay? So we have new diatonic scale patterns that you'll have to get in your head. Do you remember what the scale patterns of diatonic chords were for major scales? Can you put those forth for me right now? Which ones were major, which ones were minor, and which ones were diminished? All right, you did that. These are 2 new ones that you will have to keep in your brain. Cool? A minor is the easiest one to recall where the majors and minors go because it has the fewest number of sharps or flats in it. So whenever you need to remember that, just use A minor and you can tell what all of the chords are. Oh, look at that. Look at that, harmonic minor. So, we're going to talk about listening to a couple of scales. I'm going to play a couple of minor scales for you. You're going to listen to and try to identify whether they're major, minor, or, which type of minor. Then I'm going to play some triads for you, and you're going to identify them as major, minor, diminished, or augmented. First, I will play the major scale for you. Pretty recognizable, huh? Here is the minor, natural minor scale. Here is the harmonic minor scale. And here is the melodic minor scale. Remember, I got to go up and down here on this one. All right, so I'll actually be playing them for you up and down just because that melodic one requires you to go back down. Remember what you're listening for on those is, number 1, for the melodic, is it different going up and down? If it's different going up and down, that's probably a melodic minor scale. If it's got that step and a half between 6 and 7, it's probably a harmonic minor scale. If it sounds pretty bland, like this. Same up and down with no wide intervals in there. It's probably natural minor. And major, you kind of got that in your head. All right, so here's number 1. Here's number 2. Here is number 3. And here is number 4. Here is number 5. Here is number 6. Here is number 7. Here's number 8. Here is number 9. And here is number 10. All right, now the second part of the listening test is to try to identify major, minor, diminished, and augmented triads. I'm going to play each one for you. The major triad, we've been listening to those for a long time. Minor triad, diminished triad, and augmented triad. Okay, only 4 different things to choose from. You either make a capital letter, you can use just the Roman numeral capital 1. For the minor, make it a lowercase Roman numeral 1. For diminished, make that lowercase with a little circle after it. And for augmented, lowercase with a plus. Okay? Here is number 1. Here is number 2. Here is number 3. Here is number 4. Here is number 5. Here is number 6. Here's number 7. Here is number 8. Here is number 9. Here is number 10. All right, how did you do? Hopefully you did pretty well. We'll keep listening to those things and getting your ears trained very well. All right, next topic, modes. A mode is a scale of 8 notes in alphabetical order. It can begin on any scale degree of a major scale using the key signature of the parent scale. And it really isn't that hard. It's actually easier than all of the stuff that I just taught you in all of the major to minor keys. So let's start out again with our simplest key, C major, as an example. Here's the C scale in its first mode. That's just a plain C scale, right? That's its first mode. we're going to call that major scale that starts on the tonic, we're going to call that the Ionian mode. Ionian mode. Let's take a peek at it. Between steps 3 and 4 and 7 and 8, we have half steps. That's where the half steps are in an Ionian mode. Between 3 and 4 and 7 and 8. That happens to be where the half steps are for a major scale. You guys already know that. So you already know the Ionian mode. That's a major scale. All right? That's your first mode. Here's our second mode, Dorian. You see here, no sharps, no flats. All we did was we started on D instead of C, okay? But we played all the white notes in the same manner. So he starts on D, ends in D, but now our half steps are between 2 and 3 and 6 and 7, right here, because we shifted up, okay? Now, let me take a step back here. You know what a major scale sounds like, but I'm going to play it for you anyway. If you go to the Dorian mode, with the half steps in between 2 and 3 and 6 and 7, he sounds like this. It's just the C scale, but you don't start on C. You start on D, okay? Which shifts your half steps to between 2 and 3 and 6 and 7, okay? In terms of listening, it's like a natural minor scale with a raised sixth, okay? But that might confuse you a little bit more. All right, what do you think the third mode will be? What note do you think it'll start on? Yes, if you said E, there you go. The third mode is called the Phrygian mode. Phrygian mode. Again, we just shifted the C scale up, and we're going to start on the third degree of it. Now our half steps are between 1 and 2 and 5 and 6, and he's going to sound like this. Okay. The fourth mode starts on the F. Ta-da! Guess what? It has half steps between 4 and 5 and 7 and 8. Cool? If you look at this, you know what? If you got no sharps, no flats, and you think, oh, okay, well, that kind of looks like an F major scale, but it doesn't have that B flat in there that we need. So basically, this Lydian mode, as we will call the fourth mode, has a raised fourth because there's no B flat right there. The Lydian mode sounds like this. His half steps are between 4 and 5 and 7 and 8. Okay? By the way, if you guys are freaking out thinking that I'm going to give you an ear training test of the modes, no, I'm probably not going to do that in this class, okay? You will just need to know what the modes are and how you get them, okay? So Lydian is built on the fourth note of the scale. The fifth note of the scale would be G, right? Check this out. If you just started a C scale on its fifth tone, you have what we call Mixolydian, and that is simply a lowered seventh of a major scale. Listen. So it just sounds like a major scale with a lower seventh. You have your half steps between 3 and 4, just like in a major scale, but now your half steps are between 6 and 7 instead of 7 and 8 in a regular major scale. That's called Mixolydian. Lydian and Mixolydian are probably, in addition to the Ionian, which was the first mode, they're the most recognizable ones to you. The next one starts on A, and that's called the Aeolian or natural minor. It's exactly the same as the natural minor scale. because it shares the key signature with the major that we are in. We're in C major. This is its relative minor. So you've already heard this one. Half steps between 2 and 3 and 5 and 6. Let's see, where's 5 and 6? Right here. Cool? And finally, yes, on the seventh scale degree, which is a B, we have the Locrian mode. It has its half steps between 1 and 2 and 4 and 5. Whoops, yeah, 4 and 5, E and F, right there. All right. So, what happens when we have a more complicated major scale? Always relate to the keynote to a major or natural minor scale. For example, let's try the Lydian mode of the key of F, D, and B flat. Okay? F has one flat in it, right? So if we wanted the Lydian mode, let's go back here. The Lydian mode starts on the 4th scale degree. 4th scale degree. So back to this question. Where does the Lydian mode of F start? The 4th scale degree of F, right? The 4th scale degree of F is a B flat. So the Lydian mode of F, B flat, C, D, E, F, G, A, B flat. Okay? Now, D. What would the Lydian start on for the D? Lydian mode. The 4th scale degree of D. Okay? 4th scale degree of D is D, E, F, G. All right, so the Lydian of D would be do you hear that 4th scale degree raised up a half step? Very easy to identify. And what about the B flat Lydian? What's the 4th scale degree of B flat? E flat. Very good. All right. So let's start the Lydian mode and play that. All right. Again, that 4th is where the difference is. All right. You guys have had a lot of material that I put in there. I put some questions in there just to make sure that you guys are actually listening to what I have to say this week. We're going to have a lot of exercises that we're going to work on this week with regards to this. Really not as bad as it sounds, but there's a lot to take in. So take heart. It's going to be okay, and I will have examples for you when you come back tomorrow. But thank you for playing along, and I will chat with you then. Enjoy a little bit of the cold, freezing weather outside, and hopefully you can still build a snowman. Maybe not. I don't know. See you later.